Good morning, everyone. I'm Aristide Kilimo from REACH and the Global Reading Network. I work in the position of training specialist, and I manage enabling writers program in 6 countries, as you will hear, which you will hear in this presentation I'm going to make. Yes. So our program is called Enabling Writers Workshop Program, and this is started due to the problem that one of the main barriers to improving children's reading skills is lack of appropriate and engaging materials in mother tongue. And therefore, this has contributed to children being unable to get the reading practices they need in the languages they speak and understand. And the fact that around the world, there are 387 million primary school children who are unable to read proficiently. And 2/3 of these children are already in schools. So Enabling Writers program is funded by All Children Reading, a grand challenge for development partners, which include USAID, World Vision, Australian government. And the URC and Global Reading Network support implementation in the 6 countries, which are Bangladesh, Haiti, Indonesia, Nigeria, Nepal, and Philippines. So to address this gap, All Children Reading created Enabling Writers Prize competition to drive the development of software technology to make it easier, cheaper, and faster to write high quality, early grade reading materials in mother tongue languages. Bloom software, developed by Cellead International, won the prize, and now working with Enabling Writers to create 300 titles in 15 languages in countries I mentioned above, which is Bangladesh, Haiti, Indonesia, and Nepal. Enabling Writers work to contribute to Global Book Alliance objectives, that is to produce well-written, level, appropriate reading materials, which are difficult to find in many children's mother tongues, but also to expand access to content by providing open licensed downloadable materials that allow sharing, electronic use, and large-scale printing. Specifically, Enabling Writers program objectives is 1, to develop substantial set of high-quality decodable and leveled books for adoption by ministries of education and used by schools in developing countries, but also to develop local capacity for sustainable creation of quality decodable and leveled books beyond the scope of the project, and to produce large sets of quality materials using the Bloom Book writing software for sharing via the Global Digital Library and other online ebook access points. It was important to have implementing subcontractors at local level to ensure that the countries which we are working with will continue to create this type of materials even beyond the project. These materials created are contextualized to reflect the culture of the countries we are working with, so that they are appropriate to the context in which these children are learning. As you can see on the screen, we have 6 countries we are working with, and you can go through the implementing partners as you can see over the screen. We had several implementation steps which enable us to implement this program. One of the steps was first to seek collaboration and government buy-in, and therefore our sub-grantees had to sign memorandum of understanding with the government, and the government had to approve the work plan which our sub-grantees created for the project implementation. And then the project launch was launched with training of core teams in each country. Then the training was cascaded to local writing teams, followed by writing workshops series. And then there was another stage of quality assurance. Then after quality assurance, we had to, the local teams had to do modifications based on the feedback which they got from quality assurance reviews and field testing. And finally, these books had to be verified by the Ministry of Education. So another role of government was one, to provide guidance on curriculum mapping, because these materials had to include some themes from the curriculum of those particular classes or grades, but also the government had to collaborate in creating or adapting letter scope and sequence, in creating and adapting leveling criteria, but also collaborate in book writing, reviews, and field testing. And finally, the government provided approval of the work plans, of the mapped curriculum themes, of the scope and sequence and leveling criteria documents, but also approval of the created books in that particular and in each specific country. So during launch in each country, 3 project staffs were trained to support implementation. These staffs included a project manager, writing trainer, we sometimes call them writing pedagogue trainer, and Bloom trainer, so 3 people in each country. These teams were trained for 5 days by URC, Rich Reading Specialist, and SEAL-led International Technology Specialist. The trainees were selected based on their experience on the areas they'll be providing support to the project. So the areas for training included project management, but also pedagogy training sessions, which focused on the overview of early grade reading, role of decodable and leveled books, differences between decodable and leveled books, language setup documents, and how to train writing teams. On the side of technology, which means the Bloom, the training focused on the components and functions of Bloom, installing and troubleshooting Bloom, configuring Bloom for language, decodable and leveled reader templates, training writing teams to use Bloom. And after the workshop, we had to provide trainer certification after they qualified for this certification, but also support troubleshooting in those countries. And this particular role was being taken by SEAL-led International, who developed the Bloom software. So we had writers' workshops in each country, and participants for these writers' workshops included children book authors, teacher and curriculum specialists, and these writers need to possess previous experience in writing children books, background in teaching lower grade classrooms, understanding of language to be used in books, and they had to have basic computer skills so that they can work with the Bloom. The pedagogue and the Bloom training were replicated in writers' workshops, and these writers' workshops were divided into small groups so that they work to create sample books. And in each group, there were approximately 30 participants. The categories of workshop, the initial was 5 days training workshop, and this focused mainly on pedagogue and Bloom, as I mentioned. And this was followed by subsequent series of book writing workshops and peer review processes to ensure that the books which were being created had high quality as required by the program and also as required by the ministry. So the writing teams and different specialists, including reading specialists, curriculum specialists, and language experts, had to do some sort of review to ensure that these materials have quality which is required for them to be appropriate for the target grades. There was an initial content review by writers after they have created draft books, and this was purposely for checking the content, context, gender, and inclusion, and also confirm with leveling criteria and scope and sequence. Then it was followed by deep technical review by reading specialists, language experts, curriculum specialists, to ensure that the use of acceptable standard language, but also structure and vocabulary, check content, also check leveling, the issues of gender and inclusion, context, and also check typos. Then after these reviews, these books were taken to schools for field testing with the students and teachers in instruction to check for acceptability of these books, to check for the appropriateness with the students and teachers. Then after field testing, the team now had to come back, look on the field testing feedback, and then do the revisions informed by field testing. And these revisions, therefore, had to accommodate feedback from teachers and the students who participated in the field testing. In the program, we have some materials which we have provided to the country teams to guide them on the review process, on the field testing, but also in writing workshops. So we have a program guide. We also have field testing toolkit, and we have evaluation toolkit. All of these enable the country teams and the writing teams to do reference in the areas which they think they need more details after the training has been administered. So URC and CILLEAD had a monitoring role, including reviewing of the plans which were developed by the country teams. We review them and give them feedback, but also provide guidance for challenges these local country teams encountered in the field testing. They were not doing the field testing at once. They were doing field testing in batches so that the feedback they get add value to the batch, which will be for next field testing, to try to eliminate some challenges or mistakes which were in the first batch. But also we provided them guidance on reviewing of the books they have created. And some of the books were shared with us, just a sample, because each language they're creating 200 books, so they could not share with us every title, but just a sample to look at them and provide them feedback. We had also a role of providing guidance for interacting with the Ministry of Education to make sure that they collaborate and they own the process and the product. But also CILLEAD had provided troubleshooting on the Bloom software. And what you see on the screen is the results of the project from each country. The target was to create 200 titles for each language. But as you can see, some countries have exceeded the number of titles expected to be produced, which is 200 titles were required. But you will see some countries like Nigeria, they went far by 220 titles. Bangladesh, 220. Philippines were required to create 200 titles. They have gone beyond and created 1,200 titles, but these materials are still in field testing. They are doing the final reviews now, so we expect the number may go a little bit down. Haiti, 260, Indonesia, 205, and Nepal, they are still implementing the project. They are required to produce 1,400 titles, but until now they have drafted 1,600 titles. We expect them to go down a little bit because they are going to be field tested and some of the books may be removed due to field testing, but also the number may remain the same depending on the feedback they'll be getting from the field testing. So other results include, in Bangladesh, for example, Bloom was integrated into the ICT teacher training curriculum. In Nigeria, the Hausa titles have been uploaded to the Global Digital Library and Bloom Library. But also there is a program in Nigeria, which is a program for early grade reading, which we are in discussion with the American University of Nigeria to see if they can use these materials in the early grade reading project, which they are implementing in 2 states in Nigeria. For Indonesia, Bahasa, and Bangladesh, Bangla titles have been uploaded to Bloom Library and will go on the GDL in this August. Haitian Creole titles will be uploaded to GDL, and to the Bloom Library, also in this August, and Philippine materials in 4 languages, that is Cebuano and the Kalanguya, are expected to go to GDL and Bloom Library in September this year. With this implementation, there are some lessons we have learned as a project, and these were mainly forwarded to us by the implementing partners. And these lessons included that the concept of decodable and leveled books is new in many countries. And therefore, we had in the future, a comprehensive training is recommended if enabling writers model is going to be disseminated. And this is also, our subcontractors are also aware of this, and we advise them that if they will do disseminating the enabling writers model in other organizations in their countries, they will need to do some kind of comprehensive training, because this concept of decodable and leveled books is still new. There is a need to link this model with LA grade reading projects in order to allow wider geographical and more title coverage field testing. So in the implementation of this project, our sub-grantees had shared with us some lessons learned. And one of the lessons learned is that the concept of decodable and leveled books is new in many countries. And therefore, in disseminating this model, whether in a new country or in the same country with other groups, a comprehensive training should be required, because we want the people to understand exactly what decodable and leveled books are before they start creating these materials. Also, in future, there's a need to link this model, which means enabling writers model, with LA grade reading projects in order to allow wider geographical and more title coverage field testing to maximize book quality, but also to guarantee distribution and use of these materials in classroom instruction. For the projects we were working with, our expectation was the government will adapt these materials to support their reading programs in their countries, but it was not our responsibility to make sure that the government adapt these materials. However, there has been good feedback since the government has been involved from the first stage of creating these materials. They are the ones who provided the approval. They have participated in the field testing and review of these materials. So we hope that these materials will at last be adopted by government in those specific countries to support their reading programs. As a dissemination and expectation of more countries to adopt this model, enabling writers materials have been made accessible for any implementer to use, and they can be available at our Global Reading Network website, as you can see on the screen. And the REACH team is available to provide online orientation to interested organizations, and this orientation will focus on the materials and also the processes for using these materials. So whoever who is interested to have this model implemented in their country with the group, with the book writing teams in their countries, we are available to provide support, specifically orientation on the materials themselves, but also the processes for these materials. And therefore, I thank you so much for your attention. And if we have any question regarding the program, please, you're welcome to ask.